Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I am so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have just a wonderful show lined up. Our first guest, Ellen Goldberg, is here today to talk to us about her new book, The Art and Science of Hand Reading. Now, Ellen is an internationally known teacher of tarot and palmistry, and she's the founder and director of the School of Oracles located in New York City. Ellen also is a psychotherapist and has maintained private practice in New York City for over 30 years. So let's welcome to the show, Ellen.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, what a joy it is to have you here. Now, I saw your workshop over at the Omega Institute, and I just had to have you on the show. I mean, my goodness, you have such a great background.
Well, I have been doing palmistry since I am 29 years old, and I'm 72 years old now, so I have had a lifetime of palmistry. And although I am also an expert tarot reader and have taught tarot around the world, and I'm a good astrologer and a psychotherapist, of all the skills that I have, nothing has enriched my life more than palmistry. Because people have the same markings on the hand all over the world. It's a universal language, and it's actually a passport. To know to read palms is a passport to friendship everywhere you go.
You gotta love that. And I love that it has such a richness to it. And there's so much that can be understood when we dive into palmistry.
Well, you know, it was the first psychology. And people have been looking at their hands since the dawn of time. And one thing that I found very fascinating is in some of the oldest scriptures on earth, the Upanishads out of India, there was, in 2000 years BC, an admonishment to the monks saying, you know, a monk should never read a palm for money. And that helps us to know that even way back 2,000 years BC, palmistry was already a profession.
Well, and I know that you've actually just come out with a book, The Art and Science of Hand Reading, that I found it to be very inclusive. It was very detailed.
Well, I'm very proud of this book. We had our launch party on my 71st birthday, so I'm give a big shout out to all late bloomers. And I waited until I really had something to say. And I'm hoping, you know, books on palmistry are never going to make the national bestseller list, but it could have a very long life, and I'm hoping it'll be in print for 100 years. So
I don't doubt that. I mean, it was really, because I picked up some books on palmistry and just kind of put them back down because they were so complex, and it wasn't written in such a way that the person that picked it up could really gain an understanding of what's going on. But your book was quite different than that. It kind of is a step-by-step guide on how to start reading palms, like right now.
Yes, thank you for seeing that. What is especially important to me is that anyone can read this book who has an interest in palmistry or in people or in helping in a unique way. And that if you start at page 1, I wrote it in a very conversational style, and I'm not a very good typist, and I have a book partner. I'm the author of the book, but my really essential book partner, she was my scribe, and I dictated the book to her, and so I spoke the book aloud, and it's almost as though you're in the classroom with me. I also must say, because I did these before the book, that I have 50 free little videos up about palmistry on Howcast.com and on YouTube on the Howcast, HOWCAST, on the Howcast channel, so that they are an accompaniment to the book, a visual accompaniment. And also, I've got 50 free videos on the tarot up on Howcast and YouTube as well. And I just wanted people to be able to have this in the world. Some people can come and study with me, like at the Omega Institute, where I will be giving a weekend this summer. Also, I have a small school in New York where I've been training real palmists, not phony ones, but people who really want to do the art. It's my pleasure to send real readers into the world, and I've been doing this for 40 years. And I give a 110-hour course in palmistry, 2 hours a week, for about a year. Well, and depending on how we stretch the time and take vacations.
Well, and what I really appreciate about your work is that it can be inclusive for anybody. So if it's somebody that's really kind of diving in and wanting to learn this for themselves, or someone that's looking to become a practitioner, they can do that.
It would be, if only I had the time and access, I'd love to give a course on this in high school. Because it's really men. And in fact, already a woman called me from Wisconsin who's bringing her 16-year-old daughter who's been reading the book to this workshop at Omega that I'm giving at the end of July. Probably our show is going to air after this, but it is my thrill to give people what we call God's roadmap. And even if you weren't spiritual, the more scientific palmists call it, at least I call it, a map of the brain. It is meant as a guide to your own life. We're complex. We know that already. Human beings are complex, and this world is not necessarily an easy place. And yet every time we buy an appliance, it comes with a set of instructions and guidebook. And how about us? Well, it turns out we have it right at our fingertips. And it's an ever-changing map. Learning how to read your own palm, which is really what I teach my students essentially. And then, of course, if you learn how to read your own, you can read anybody's. Well, I teach how to read both. But it shows me that the mysterious powers that be cared about us. And the hand is a simple symbol system, but what it says, it never lies. And because there are more nerves between the hand and the brain than almost any other part of the nervous system, except maybe for the heart, every thought has a chemistry. You think a fear thought and some adrenaline flows. We think love thoughts and that wonderful serotonin is flowing through our body, and it makes us so happy. But every thought has a chemistry, and the hand is the terminus for those impulses, and that is how the shapes are formed. And just like the Buddha said, with our thoughts we make our world. Well, with our thoughts we make the lines in the palm and the shapes in the palm, and you change your thinking, and your hand will change. And so it is an up-to-the-moment sort of report card. I think of it as a report card from the higher self to show us how we're doing, what our strengths are, where we need help, what seems to be coming down the turnpike in different areas of our life. And, the hand wants to be read. It's not that complex. It's not above people to learn this. I learned it, and I am not a psychic. I am just an intelligent woman who is fascinated by this subject. And before I was a palmist, I was a social worker, and then I thought, now I'm going to be a spiritual social worker. And after a while in palmistry, I went back and got a master's in psychology just to upgrade my work. And I can incorporate that all, but I see how the hand shows you when people come to work with me in psychotherapy. First session, I'm looking at their hand right away to see what are we dealing with that's intrinsic to the human being.
Well, and I think it's so important that you also have that very educated background, because a lot of times when people think of someone that reads palmistry, they are just they're just kind of thinking maybe like gypsies, or it's not really, there's no scientific basis for that, where it's quite the opposite. I mean, here you're a highly educated woman, and you've used this time and time again with the people that you've worked with, and been able to kind of like prove different things that are going on in their lives or have things that resonate with them. They're like, yeah, that's completely right. That's 100% right. That's what's going on.
Oh, you said something that means a lot to me, Marianne, because it is such a pleasure to me to show people that there is a level of life that I guess we could call it verges on the miraculous, on the magical, and that this is an everyday thing, not just reserved for going off to some, mountain monastery in Tibet or, studying with a magical guru in India. No, in our everyday life, there is this magical, gift, these gifts that abound, and the hand is one of them. And for people to wake up and see this, and to see that it is a part of life, that's my pleasure. That's my great pleasure. And one thing, because you were so kind to send me a picture of your hand just a few minutes ago, I see that you have so much love in you, that you love life. You know that life should be a joy. And so for you to be hosting a radio show like that, and for me to see how large, because what I'm looking at is the shape in your hand of the huge ball of the thumb, that big muscle that moves the thumb at the bottom of the thumb in the hand, the single largest padding in the hand, that's called the mounted Venus. And some people's are flatter, and they're not very sentimental, and they're maybe not quite as juicy as other people. But you love love, you love life, and you are a juicy, sentimental, romantic, pleasure-loving human being.
You got that right you hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yes, it's wonderful. I also see that you have kind of shortish fingers. Right? And do you know the shorter the fingers, the quicker the mind? The fingers are like antennas. And anyway.
Thank you.
Yes. So they are quick and intuitive. You don't even have to stop and analyze. You just get the whole picture real quick, and you want to see the big picture right away, and you can. When people have long fingers, and people who are listening to the show might look at their own fingers and see they're going to be either long, medium, like mine, or short. Medium length fingers, well, it looks like the fingers are in nice proportion to the palm, but people who have long ones, people have noticed already, and you've noticed too, that they are longer than average. And they're like long antennas, and those people like to go slowly and carefully, and they don't want to be rushed. And people with short fingers, they naturally are speedy. They go fast. Yeah. They'll deal with the details if they have to, but it's not their favorite thing. And sometimes fingers are smooth like yours to show inspiration. Things just come into you real quick. And some people have knots at the joints of the fingers, extra little bony protuberances. And if they have them at the very top joint, that's the knot of mental analysis. Sometimes people have them on all fingers and sometimes just on one, and then it's in the area of life covered by that finger, because each finger connects to those nerves connect to different parts of the brain. That area they want to analyze. But if they just have them on the bottom knot, the joint closest to the palm, why, those are the knots of material order and of common sense. And if you've got an extra little protuberance on the side of your fingers right there, why, you love things to be in order. You need them to be in order to think well, and you have got what I think of as a great blessing, good old common sense. And there are so many little variances in the hand, and every single thing means something. For instance, now I know your hand is tilted a little backwards in the picture, but it looks to me like your pinky, Marianne, doesn't come and reach the top phalange. Sometimes pinky, to be normal, if it's held against the side of the hand by its neighboring finger, what we think of as the ring finger, or in Apollo it's called the finger of art, that fingertip of the pinky should reach the top line, the line that divides the first and second joint of that finger. Does yours reach that line, Marianne? Because it doesn't look like it exactly.
No, it sure does not.
It's an undersized pinky, and that means that you actually don't like to think about money that much.
That's true.
It's true. It's like...
That is really true. I'd rather just have fun, do what I'm here to do, help and support, and, it's great when the money comes in. Yeah.
Yes, you're not balancing your checkbook. No, people with long pinkies, why they handle money, they enjoy thinking about it, they enjoy investing it. Your long finger that seems a little, everybody's got certain things in the hand that are special, some that are completely just ordinary and sufficient, and others that are deficient. Each hand is like, when I look at a hand, I think of it in the same way as the way a good cook reads a recipe book. If you know those ingredients, when you look at that recipe, you have a feeling for what that would be like. And that's the same in palmistry. You see those different ingredients, you say, ooh, that's a spicy one. Oh, that's dry, or that's very subtle, or oh, this is a hearty dish. I can see that although you may not like to think about money that much, what you do care about is being your own unique self. You want to be a self-realized human being because you've got a long index finger. Yes. And you like food. You'd be one of those people that could read a recipe book real well. How do I know that? When the bottom phalanges, and each section of those fingers is called a phalange. The one close with the nail is the top phalange, then there's the middle phalange, and the bottom phalange is closest to the palm. Some people's phalanges are just the same even size as all the others. And that lets you see that the mental world, the practical world, and the physical world, which is the bottom phalange, are all equally divided in their attentions. But look at you, Marianne, you've got those bottom phalanges nice and full. Do you see that?
Uh-huh.
They're a little more full. You love the senses. You love food. You love touch.
All of it, for sure.
All for sure. All for sure. In other words, the hand was there to help us to know ourselves, right? That was what was written over the entrance to the Oracle of Delphi. And I read for people all over the world. I send them instructions on how to take good photos of their hands, and then we talk on the phone or by Skype. And you can see, of course, it's wonderful to have a hand in person because I love to squeeze those hands and feel the energy in them, and I love to feel the feel of the skin because the finer the skin, the finer the nature. People with very coarse hands, and for that you would feel just the back of the hand. And I don't think it's this is not influenced necessarily by the job you do unless you're submerging them in harsh chemicals every day, which, you have to make allowances for that. But most, I'd say 95% of us, what you feel on the back of the hand is going to let you know how refined the nature is. And I have seen people in very humble circumstances with skin like silk on the back of their hand, and there's an inner fineness and refinement where they are very careful about everything they do, and they always want things to be really nice, as nice as they can make them. And people with coarse skin that feels like maybe an old scuff, the bottom of an old scuffed shoe, or, like a light, fine sandpaper, but that would be coarse for skin. You cannot be fooled by their station in life, or if they have, money or diamonds on. No, the inner nature is coarse. Most of us have medium-grade skin, and that just gives very good support to the other qualities that we find within the hand. what I see about you is also that your headline is never touches your lifeline. You know, that means you're an independent thinker. The people whose headline and lifeline are joined as one for a long time, the lifeline is the line that circles the thumb, and the headline is the one that starts very near it. They have a common origin near the thumb, and it's certainly okay for it to touch it for a little while in youth, but the longer they're tied, the more dependent their thinking is. People whose headline and lifeline are tied all the way to the very outer, you know, for maybe an inch and a half or 2 inches. Wow, they worry all the time about the opinion of others, and they cannot validate their own worth. You have just a very healthy separation. I can tell you that it's so interesting to read the recessive hand. The recessive hand, you know, that would be for a right-handed person, the left. The right, you know, the dominant hand is when you write with. The recessive hand does not change. It keeps, or it changes so little or slowly, but it keeps more or less the original pattern given at birth. But the dominant hand, every time it changes authentic, it changes. My headline on my dominant hand used to be tied to the lifeline, and over years, because that was a slower change, I separated them to be about as far apart as yours are now.
Oh, my goodness.
And another thing is, when I was writing my book, and you see what a huge book that is.
It's great.
That was a labor of about 4 or 5 years. And I also did most of the illustrations, except the beautiful hand with the mounts. That was done by a famous artist, Edgar Gerens. But all those line illustrations for the hand in the line section, that's me. I labored over it, but as I wrote that book, do you know that my pinky grew? Because that's
it did?
Indication. Yes, it did. That's the rules writing.
Well, and I've heard of people having, you know, like if they get their palm read and they don't really have some of the traits that they're looking for, they'll do the work in order to establish that. Is that something that normally happens?
It's absolutely. That's why I do not hesitate to tell people what I actually see, because people have the right to have a good shot at changing that. And I have filled in gaps on my own lines. I've seen countless people do it because I don't keep numbers. You know, I'm not that sort of a person. But I've seen countless people do it. I've been reading palms now. Let's see how, from 30 to 70. So at least for 43 years. And I read wherever I go because it's so much fun. People love it no matter where you are, and also then you always have something to give people.
It really sounds like, I mean, it is your true calling because you're so passionate about it, and it's something that you do so well. I've heard other interviews where you've done, kind of read their palm, either from pictures, like how you've done with mine, or you've met with that person at some degree, and you know them and you've read their palm. And it was really astounding how right on and dot on you are with everything. I mean, I was listening to people going, "Oh my gosh, that's so right," and I feel the same way. You know?
Well, I can only say that there is even more. Of course, we've just touched the surface, but I would also like to mention, and although this is not palmistry, but astrology is also an amazing science. And do you know the 7 mounts in the hand are named after the 7 planets of the ancients? And so when I read charts or when I read a hand, I often do their chart and put it right on my lap, and I look at the chart and I look at the hand. And I have found that what the ancients called the law of correspondence is true. They never contradict each other. And to see that the chart and the hand say and echo the same things about the person, want to deliver the same message. To me, I am humbled to see the workings of the intelligent universe, even though we're just a little speck here for a moment. The universe cares, and it gives us and tries to speak to us in myriad ways over and over. Our job is to pay attention. Our job is to tune in, but everything wants to speak and tell us and help us. And
now, let's say that someone's getting their palm read, or actually taking the workshop, and learning from you on how to read palmistry. They can use that in their work environment as well, or relationships, or in any situation?
Oh, absolutely. Now, do you mean they can use the information I give them, or do you mean that they could take those skills into everything? Certainly, both are true. I'll say something about both. The hand will talk about, different parts of the hand. There is a section that talks about relationship. And, I wish I had your left hand in front of me, too, because the left hand, right hand.
Oh, shoot. I should have sent that to you, too.
I should have sent it to me, too, because the left hand shows who influences your heart, and the dominant hand, of course, it would be vice versa for a lefty. The dominant hand shows whose heart you influence, and those are very subtle little lines on the Mount of Venus. We also can tell much about the work life. But if you were learning palmistry, and we can tell about the energy, the line of life doesn't show how long one lives, but it shows how long energy is a gift, and when you have to start being really responsible for that energy. And but so I would like to call it the line of constitution. And everyone who learns palmistry, and you don't have to devote your whole life to it like I have. I'm meant to be. I think of myself as a servant of the mysteries. And because little by little we sort of see, just like you put and interview all these people so that people could hear and share and get a real sort of like little dose of this kind of knowledge, and see, so people who are interested in so many different things could say, I'm going to look into that, or I'm going to look into this. So you bring consciousness to people, and I know that this is your passion. But
without a doubt.
Without a doubt. And you serve spirit. You really work for spirit. And that index finger of yours, which is so nice and thick and long, its nickname is the finger of God. People with those very nice, look how it towers above it's much longer, isn't it, than the ring finger?
Yes.
And some people, it's vice versa. When people have a long index finger, they feel very connected to spirit. And to many other things. Yeah. You're a humanitarian. If you did have money, you'd be giving it to good causes and things like that. And but if you learn palmistry, and anyone who reads my book, I'm going to give a pitch for my book, The Art and Science of Hand Reading, and it's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and through, of course, my publisher, Inner Traditions, which is a great publisher. You read that book starting at page 1, and I have written it to be a course. You read a few pages a day, and in a year, you'll be a palmist. And then you could look at my videos. You don't necessarily have to come to New York or to where I'm giving a workshop.
Although that's a good excuse to go to New York.
Oh, it's a day to New York, and right, it's so much fun to have a purpose for travel. And people do fly in. I'm always amazed. People fly in. I read for people by Skype and phone, but I am amazed at the people that actually say, well, we're taking a weekend in New York and we're going to book a few hours with you. Because I do all the subjects for people. But if you know palmistry, you will be able to know people in a way that it might take months or years to know, because everybody usually tries to put their best foot forward. And if you're choosing an employee or a prospective romantic partner, oh, it is so helpful to read the palm. How many divorces could be prevented if you didn't marry that person in the first place, or if you married them with your eyes wide open, saying, okay, this is who they are. This is who they are authentically. I'm not going to expect them to change. Or I want this, or I don't want that.
I think it makes a huge difference, because then people can, it gives you just a greater understanding of the people that you are connecting with.
Oh, and people so appreciate being understood and seen for who they are. It's one of the loveliest gifts we can give other people.
Yeah.
So, this, because the hand is constantly adapting, this science is just as fresh as it was, at the dawn of time. And when I was younger and would go on travels, like to, live in Spain for a summer on a Spanish island, and I was more in of the hippie generation. All I would do was get myself a translator. And I would go to any of those markets and get a little table or put out a cloth and sit down under a tree, and I would read for people. I supported myself by reading on the Ponte Vecchio at night in Florence and in Ibiza in Spain at the Sunday market. And I've read in France. I've read so many places in this world. And well, I can just say that even people you wouldn't expect. I remember once reading for a nun who was seated next to me on a plane, and she said, I was supposed to stay with a family this week in Madrid, but I got my visas to go to Poland this long ago when they needed visas. Yeah. She would say, but I want to stay with you instead. And sure enough, she came to my pension, and every night we talked and shared some sangria, and we talked about palmistry and life in the convent. It made me every kind of friend. Every kind of friend. So
it's just, I'm sure no two palms are alike.
No two palms. Look how we know that even no two fingerprints are alike. And just think what a small part of the hand that is, although... And the Chinese were using fingerprints for identification 1,000 years before we used them in the West.
I wonder where we got that from, right?
Yes, right? Oh, out of India and China came so much knowledge. The earliest palm, of course, there was Egyptian, and the Crusaders brought things back from the Middle East. But in those places, but I think India is probably where it started, and from there spread both east and west, both to the Middle East and to China. And but that was so long ago that they all grew up very wonderful traditions. Our tradition here in the West, a lot of it comes out of the Middle East. And, it's just so much fun to learn. You'll see on my book cover that I have a book partner named Dorian Bergen, and although I'm the author, Dorian was my scribe, the business manager, and produced this book. She got us the contracts and everything, and she is a marvelous palmist in her own right. She was my student, and Dorian often tells the story how after the first class, I was saying to my students, you have to look at hands all the time. You start reading right away and apply what you learned. And she happened to go to a big party that someone threw every year, just like a few nights later, and sure enough, she started applying what she'd learned in class 1, and everyone was impressed. In other words, you first learn just things like how to text for flexibility. If you put your hand in it and you press down on the fingers and they open up into a nice straight line with the rest of your palm, that's considered average flexibility. That means you are adaptable enough that you will consider things when they're presented to you and that you can make adjustments. But when you press down on those fingers and they bend all the way back, and all of you listening who do that, you know who you are, that those fingers are back almost like they're a little double-jointed. The more flexible the hand, the more flexible the mind. And sometimes it's just the top joint of the finger that'll bend all the way back. You have to test just the top little joint of the finger, and you'll be flexible in that mental world of that finger relates to. So,
well, Ellen, oh my goodness, I could talk to you I could listen to you talk on this subject. I can spend this time with you all day. I absolutely just adore you. I think your book, your energy,
I hope
it's just amazing.
Come sometime, Marianne, and we'll have a cup of tea.
Oh, you know what? It gives me a good reason to go to New York.
Delighted to you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today. We are going to have you back. I mean, you're just such a fountain of information. I love, again, your energy and the work that you do. Where can our listeners connect with you?
Well, I have a website which has the name of my school, School of Oracles. In fact, it is schooloforacles.com. And they could email me at alchemicalellen@gmail.com.
Oh, my goodness.
But I'd be happy to hear from anyone. And
well, and I have to say you are dead on with everything.
Can I say one or two more things about you, Marianne?
Sure.
Marianne,
sure.
First of all, the period that's starting is really good. And you also have a form. You see that sort of ring that runs around the index finger? You know, the one that I was saying runs so big and strong on you? That's called the Ring of Solomon. You love wisdom.
I do.
And you love philosophy. It gives you a special talent in things both spiritual and philosophical. And you have a little fork at the end of the headline. Do you see how there is that little fork at the very end? It starts near the thumb, but it ends sort of as it approaches. That means you always see two sides of everything.
I do. I see. Try to look at the bigger picture and try to see it from all angles.
Exactly so. Well, I hope we continue our conversation one day, and I appreciate being on your show. And just also for anyone who's listening in today, if you start to read palms, you'll be something very rare because there are many tarot card readers, and I honor the tarot enormously, and there are many astrologers, but there are very few real palmists. So you could make of yourself something very rare and useful by learning to read palms.
Well, and I highly suggest scheduling an appointment with Ellen to get your palm read. I mean, this has been such an enlightening time. And I'm so glad everyone was here to join and share this with me and have fun with this experience. You definitely want to get in touch with Ellen at her website, schooloforacles.com. We're going to pause here for a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 1-2-3 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Ben Wexler is a gifted leadership development and strategy consultant for professionals who want to transform their organizations and careers. Through a uniquely personalized set of processes, participants discover their unique knowledge, how to leverage that knowledge and experience, and then put it all together with a global strategy. You're more valuable, your organization is more valuable, and the change is viral. Contact Ben at 630-881-1074. 630-881-1074.
This is Jennifer McGill. My highly anticipated new album, Unbreakable, is now available at jennifermcgill.com. Everything from power ballads to high-energy jam-out-in-your-car songs. I used my highest joys and deepest pains to create empowering songs of love, strength, healing, and restoration so that you can be unbreakable too. Get your copy of Unbreakable today from jennifermcgill.com. Because who doesn't want to be unbreakable?
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. What a great time we're having today. That was so much fun with Ellen, and I cannot wait to introduce our next guest. Now, Melissa Mintz is here today to talk to us about holistic healing. She is an energy medicine practitioner, author, speaker, and she's located in the Atlanta, Georgia area. Now, Melissa has just recently released 2 books, which is quite a feat. Her first book is a hilarious new comedy, It's Just My Nonsense. And her second book, Excuse Me, Your Energy is Showing, is an inspirational self-help book. Now, growing up, Melissa had another career goal in mind, and it certainly did not involve writing or doing weird stuff with energy. Melissa always knew that she wanted to work in the medical field, and she graduated with a BS degree in nuclear medicine and accepted a job with a pharmaceutical company. Since Melissa also works in the medical field, she has a unique insider's view of both holistic and conventional medicine. So let's welcome to the show Melissa, and I'm actually just going to dive into my first question. In your book, you have what's called Thinking with Purpose. So what does that mean?
Well, I have a chapter that I refer to as conscious creation, and conscious creation is basically just being aware of our thoughts, creating with mindfulness, because so often we have no idea what we're even thinking about, but the energy is still forming about it just the same. We're constantly sending a vibration to the universe, whether we're aware of it or not. Even when we're sleeping, we're sending a vibration to the universe, and we all have this habitual way of thinking. You can think of our mind as this software program that's telling the body what to do and transmitting this frequency and vibration to the universe, and that's how we create our reality. So if we're not aware of what we're creating, then we're truly living our life on default mode, and we're giving our greatest power away. Being able to create is our greatest superpower, because we are the energy of God, manifest in form. So we do have that co-creative power. It is our birthright. So I talk about conscious creation is conscious control, and I also give examples of the best way to create what we want. And one way to do this is just, we're playing a game of make-believe with the universe, where the universe doesn't know if we already have what we want, or if we're just imagining what we want, or if we actually have it. The energy still forms around it just the same. And what I mean is, if you want a new car, then don't keep saying, I want a new car, I want a new car, I need a new car, because the universe will respond and say, and so it is. Keep wanting, keep needing,
feel as if you already have the car. And do you love the color of the car? Feel how much you love the color. Sit in the car. You know, do you love the interior? Do you enjoy driving the car? And just create this emotion and the feeling. And again, the universe doesn't know if you have it or just imagining it. The energy is already moving towards that.
Well, and, you know, I think a lot of times people get forgetful of that. They think they just kind of get, you know, they're like, oh, I know law of attraction and mindfulness and all this, and, you know, but they keep getting into this, like, little wheel about what it is that they are wanting to have in their life. And I think it's so great that you have a chapter that's dedicated to that, so people can really reconnect with what it is that they really want to get in this life.
Well, if we're not aware of what we're creating, we're still creating, and we're just living our life on default mode. And we truly are just bouncing around from one obstacle to another until game over. And I think it would be so sad to go through life feeling that we do have no control, that we're just basically a victim of circumstances. And the universe is a giant mirror, and it's just reflecting everything back to us. So if your habitual way of thinking is, I hate my life, I hate my job, nobody loves me, I'm unworthy, then the universe says, and so it is, and it'll create people in your life and circumstances and events to match that vibration. Think of it like a boomerang. Whatever we throw out just comes right back at us. And if we know that love and gratitude is the highest vibration, then first of all, start thinking about things to be grateful for. Because if you're not grateful for what you already have, then the universe will never bring you anything to be grateful for. Because how this works is when we have the vibration of love and gratitude, you know, I'm grateful I have a job. I'm glad the register line is short. What a beautiful day. Just these thoughts, first of all, it changes our habitual way of thinking. But the universe then responds and says, and so it is. And it keeps giving you more things to be grateful for. And this cycle keeps continuing as long as you hold that higher vibration. And then when you go into a lower vibration, you're offering a new vibration to the universe. And again, it says, and so it is. And it brings you that vibration of the lower vibration. But, you know, nobody has the best day of their life. We don't all walk around being cheerful with all these wonderful thoughts all day. It's okay to have negative notions and a negative thought. Things don't happen that quick. But people always ask me, oh my gosh, I had a negative thought. What's going to happen? How do I cancel it? Well, thoughts are energy, and it's out there, so you can't really cancel it, but what you can do is make it inactive. And how you do that, you just focus on another thought, and now this new thought, the energy is forming around this new thought, and that old thought you have isn't even active anymore.
Oh, that's a really good place to be in, and I think people like to hear how they can make those adjustments, even though they probably have heard it a few times. And it kind of brings me to my next question. You know, you talk about humor in actually both your books, but one in, excuse me, your energy is showing. I just love that title.
Me too.
How can we use energy to change how can we use humor to change our perspective?
Well, one thing I would like about writing the humor book, and again, you know, the humor, I'm just silly. You know, my normal personality actually is more like my nonsense book. I certainly don't walk around sputtering profundity all day long, but there's a lot of humor. It's still sprinkled with humor in my Excuse Me book because it's part and parcel of who I am. I can't just tease out the humor, so that comes through. And then even in my nonsense book, there's several chapters there, you know, they're funny, but they have a more of a spiritual undertone because that's who I am, and I couldn't just tease that out as well. But, you know, I do use humor it's just my nonsense book to show a different perspective of some serious situations. Like I have a chapter, Actors, that I use the playfulness of humor and create this dichotomy to show, you know, something really serious with the playfulness of humor of eating disorders. And I talk about, you know, these actors, you see them on all these magazines and line at the grocery store, and you don't know whether to call UNICEF or buy the magazine because they're just waif-like thin and all these models. And, you know, when I was growing up, the size of the models was size 6 and 8. Now they would be plus size models today, and to fit into a size 0 and 2. And I kind of joke around and say, you know, the rich worry about eating and the poor, the rich worry about not eating and the poor worry about eating, that you have all the money that you have, but nobody can make you eat, and eventually they're going to be in minus sizes. Like, I'm not that fat. Stop showing me sizes in a size 0. Show me sizes, you know, in a minus 2. So, you know, and I do the same thing with a chapter called Prison Break, where I use humor to basically show all the entertainment and all the violence and the entertainment on television and the movie screen. So humor can change our perspective very quickly. And actually that's what It's Just My Nonsense is about. It's basically finding the nonsense in your own life by looking at situations in a different way and actually seeing the humor. And I've had people who've read that book that said, you know, reading that book, it really did help me to change my perspective and start looking at all these situations instead of getting angry, to find the funny in it, because people are funny and the things all of us do and say are hilarious. And that's what I write about.
And I think it helps also to break down paradigms that people maybe have as, you know, a story in their head or something that they've been taught that, you know, like how you were saying models are supposed to be a certain size, you know, and then it kind of translate to women are supposed to look a certain way. And so with that, it kind of breaks down some of the paradigms of, well, let's really reconsider that. Is that even realistic? Is that even something that I would want to do? And brings it more to a point where people can question what those beliefs are.
Well, I think you can use humor to show things in an exaggerated way, and especially serious issues that make them seem so absurd that they're funny. And that's what I tried to do in a few chapters in the book. And then I just show the ridiculous of pretty much everyday life. I mean, I have a short chapter that I love. It's called Bless You, and it talks about, why are we blessing the people who spread boogers on us? Why are they not blessing us? And, you know, it basically just shows, I mean, people say things, they have absolutely no idea why they're saying them. I said to my mom, do you say bless you when somebody sneezes? And she said, yes, of course. And I said, why? And she said, I don't know. I guess you're just supposed to. So we do these things and we don't even know why we're doing them. And then, you know, I did a chapter, Victoria's Secret, which is one of my favorites. It's just really silly and funny and just, talks about, you know, miracles used to be associated with parting of the Red Sea, and now they're associated with booby pads. We'd always hear about the miracle bra, and just a funny chapter on that. And so the chapters really just are about the nonsense in everyday life, and they're short and just funny chapters. And I think there's chapters in there that everybody can relate to, because we seem to laugh at the things that we can relate to. Because if you're at a comedy club, and how many times have you elbowed your friend after the comedian said something and thought, yeah, that happened to me before too, and then you start laughing because it's relatable.
Yeah, it really is. It makes things, you know, not so far off. It's like, well, okay, everyone can understand that one.
Yeah.
Well, we have a little bit more time, and I do want to ask you some questions in regards to some of the services that you offer. I was really fascinated with, I know you do the reconnection, and I wanted you to explain a little bit what that is, because I just found that to be an amazing service that I don't think I've ever seen anyone else offer.
Yeah, I was trained by Dr. Eric Pearl, and I start in the preface of Excuse Me, it talks about how I actually became an energy medicine healer. I certainly didn't grow up thinking one day I'd like to channel energy through my hands and do weird stuff with energy. And I walked into a bookstore in June of 2003, and there was a woman waiting there who placed a book in my hand and said, this is a book called The Reconnection by Dr. Eric Pearl. And that started this journey, and one synchronistic event after another just led me into this healing path that I'm on now. And you can read in the book more of who this woman was and what actually happened. So Eric refers to this type of healing as reconnection reconnective healing, and basically because he wanted to give it a name, he started working with this frequency, and he had a series of bizarre events of how he found his way into this healing work as well. So reconnective healing, it's basically we're reconnecting to the source energy, and I offer the healing sessions, but there's another service that I provide called the reconnection, and basically it's reconnecting us to the vast grid of the universe, to the ley lines of the planet, and then these other lines that reach further out into the whole universe. And the way to think of it is like being plugged into a high-speed internet. At one time, we were plugged in and we were connected and had all this access to all this light and information and the information of the cosmos. And then over time, we basically got disconnected. It's like being disconnected from the internet, and you don't have access to this information. And I consider being reconnected the best gift that I have ever given myself. It was during the reconnection, and it's about 30 to 40 minutes, and there's 2 sessions, usually 1 or 2 days apart. And it was during my day 1 of the reconnection where I had this awakening to my life purpose and a spiritual transformation and higher intuition. It was actually during that where I realized I would be doing this, writing the book and doing more of the healing work and so forth. So it really is very powerful.
Mm. And I understand that you do distance sessions as well.
Yeah, I actually do more distance sessions than in person because I can reach clients worldwide. As a matter of fact, on the last radio show I did, they had clients call in, and I was actually doing distance healings, mini sessions just for a few minutes, and that was a lot of fun. So I can even do distance healings while I'm speaking. So distance healings, people have a difficult time understanding because it just seems strange that you can get somebody's energy field if they're in China or Croatia or Australia. But quantum physics really explains that, and they've showed that energy can travel from point A to point B without traveling through the intervening space. What that means is that particle A can influence particle B, and it does so just instantaneously and simultaneously, just in an instant, as if they're right in front of me.
That sounds amazing. So where can people connect with you and learn more about the services that you provide, Melissa?
Well, my website is www.melissamintz.com, MELISSAMINTZ, and I have all the information there. And my books, you can order the books off my website, but they're also available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and they can be ordered from any bookstore as well.
Oh. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. It's been so great to have you here.
Well, my pleasure. I enjoyed it so much, so thank you again for having me.
As we say goodbye to Melissa, you want to make sure to check out her website, melissamintz.com, and also her books, Excuse Me, Your Energy is Showing, and It's Just My Nonsense. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in. If you want to learn more about Moments with Marianne, please visit momentswithmarianne.com. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.